Since 2015, Pop Health Podcast has brought to you some of the best minds in healthcare, including leaders from government, not-for-profit, and investor-backed powerhouses, as they share successes, failures, and how our audience can move forward in today's constantly evolving healthcare world. Thank you for joining us for today's episode presented by 24 Hour Home Care.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Pop Health Podcast. I'm Gavin Ward, host of Pop Health Podcast. In today's episode, I had the opportunity to bring back returning guest Gray Miller, who is the founder of Titanium Healthcare, an organization that serves many thousands of lives here in California and started all the way back in 1996. In today's episode, Gray shares a little bit about his background working on a nuclear sub, working for GE Healthcare, and how ultimately he had an inspiration to start Titanium. In today's episode, we learn how Titanium is helping so many lives in California, many times often individuals who are experiencing homelessness or who may otherwise lack access to care. He shares his story about how Titanium is more than just an enhanced care management and community supports organization, and its impact across the state has grown tremendously with the CalAIM initiative as well. We hope you enjoy today's episode. Feel free to check out other episodes of Pop Health Podcast by visiting us at pophealthpodcast.com, checking us out on our YouTube channel, or visiting us wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy today's episode. Gray, good morning. Thanks for joining the show 7 years later.
Yeah, it's good to be here, Gavin. I can't believe it's been 7 years, but a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and it's a pleasure to have you. I think I may have met you at a ABL lunch or some other type of event 7 years ago where I heard you speak and didn't know much about the Medi-Cal world and what you were doing back then with Titanium. And candidly, when I had you on the episode or on the show 7 years ago, it was really a big learning experience for me because I didn't know too much about the type of work that you were doing. But now we're crossing paths in our day jobs, which is really cool. And I thought it'd be good to bring you back. So thanks for making the time. You might recall, we like to start the shows getting to know our guest with something kind of outside of the standard day-to-day workplace. So can you share something with us and our audience that may be a fun fact, a surprise, something like that?
Yeah, well, I think the last time we touched on, I spent 3 years on a submarine. And, I think some of the experiences that I had really kind of lend themselves to what ultimately happened in building Titanium. But I go way back to, as a kid, I was somebody who, my mom were listening to this right now, she would say I was a handful or perhaps many handfuls because I'd take things apart.
Okay.
They would go out to dinner or something and I'd find a toolbox and take apart the washing machine, take apart the dryer, take apart the clock radio in the kitchen. And I just always had a penchant for taking things apart and trying to figure out how they work. And I think that really is a kind of a precursor to what we did with Titanium. And when you really think about the colossal beast of the U.S. healthcare system and how many moving pieces it is and how kind of daunting a repair would be, it really comes down to breaking it down in these individual pieces and fixing it one patient, one process, one practice at a time. And so that's a little factoid. Of course, we'll get into the more of the submarines and the kind of career experience. But I think that was really a seed that kept growing into a want to re-engineer healthcare.
So since you like taking things apart, was Legos a part of your life or anything similar to Legos?
Yeah, it was. Legos. I had an engine repair business in the 5th grade. So I would fix people's lawnmowers and go-karts and mini bikes. And, I had a vat full of pistons and carburetors and, ignition systems, all for small engines. So I kept getting things and figuring out what was wrong with them and fixing them.
Okay, so let me ask, was it truly you doing the work and the vision, or did you have any support?
No. I took apart, for some reason, engines just kind of made sense to me. Dang. And so I would read books about how it works. And, I was kind of I'm going to say a little bit of a dork. I was sort of math and physics. And, my mom was, she was kind enough to stitch the image of a chess piece into my Christmas stocking. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's certainly a gray thing.
That is awesome. I was a chess kid as well. I was actually in the chess club. I'm not sure. Did you actually play chess, or did she kind of
Oh
just?
yeah, I still
Oh,
play chess every day.
oh wow! Like actual physical board or
No,
online?
if you go to chess.com,
Yeah.
or at any moment in time, there's hundreds of thousands of people globally playing games, timed games and stuff. So I just kind of like to play all the time.
All right. Well, hey, maybe one of these days in the
Get
future.
out there, get out there.
I was a fifth grade chess champion in Glendora, California. I won a chocolate chess set, but I don't think
Oh,
I'm.
not kidding.
But I've lost my skill. Yeah, so I don't think I'm.
That's awesome. I bet you haven't lost the skills.
I don't know. My son's not really into it. I'm trying, but chess.com. Okay, quick free plug there. Chess.com.
Yeah, chess.com. Terrific.
Um, awesome. Well, hey, man, that those are some cool stories. So you grow up, you have this mind that's probably more advanced than most kids. Um, And I know ultimately you've kind of done some military work. You've also worked with GE Healthcare. Kind of talk about your background and walk us through, maybe in just a couple minutes, how you ultimately, started Titanium.
Yeah, so I was one of those kids who wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do, and because computers were getting kind of big, I took a class in Fortran, and I had my midterm in my hot little hands, bound by a rubber band, because back then every line in a computer program was a card. And
Ah,
you have to wait like an hour in line to feed these cards into a compiler, and then it would run the program. And anyway, I dropped this. The rubber band burst, and my midterm went flying into the wind in Ohio. I thought, you know what? I'm not going to be an IT guy. I just don't have the patience for this kind of thing. And so I wanted to be productive, and I decided that the military would provide some insight into some different places, maybe a career experience or two, and then I would benefit from it. Well, I took the exams and did pretty well, and eventually they said, well, you can be a nuke. You can go be a nuclear propulsion person. And so I did. I didn't know any better, and it was 3 years at school before I even saw a ship. But then, after the school came the payback where, it was 3 years, a month, and 3 days on submarines. But it's kind of funny. You take 130 22-year-old guys and throw them underwater for 70 or 80 days at a whack. It does kind of funny things.
when you say a whack, what is that?
Like at a time.
Oh,
So
okay.
we would be underwater for months
Okay.
in a room. So there'd be 3 or 4 of us in a room
Okay.
next to each other for 75 days.
Ooh.
And over time, you've heard everything about that person, every date they went on, every family little nuance. And you kind of run out of stuff to talk about because the news just isn't there.
Yeah.
And invariably, somebody will turn to the next person and say, you know what? I never noticed this before, but your head is sloped.
Okay.
And they'll say, hey man, what are you talking about? My head's not sloped. And a rumor will start, and because nobody has anything else to talk about.
Yep.
Well, did you ever notice that Davis's head was sloped? That he kind of does. You ever notice anything with his speech? That kind of thing. So it was very, very thoughtful time as far as being underwater that long, and what would we do when we got out? Would we have hobbies? So I was pretty passionate about the idea that I'd get into the business world. And so I got out and took a job in DC making nuclear power plant simulators. And I got a finance degree at night.
Okay.
And at that time, Jack Welch was this much revered leader of the industrial world, and they had this program called financial management. And I jumped onto that. I got onto that. I was accepted on that. But it was a couple of years of graduate studies in finance, and going into the corporate headquarters for training classes, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful training program. But anyway, ultimately I was had an epiphany, a moment where I was working with a commercial finance business, consumer finance business in Europe. And my big moment, when you hang a right or a left, and you realize that later on that your life kind of changed in that one moment. Well, we were modeling out skip payment coupons to credit card holders. So the idea is that if you every 48 days mailed a coupon to a credit card holder that said, hey, because of your payment history and your excellent credit, you get to skip a payment this month. This group of statisticians had figured out that we could get 2% more money out of an unsuspecting credit card portfolio. And I thought, what am I doing here? Why am I here doing this? That's not what feels good to me.
Yeah.
And so I, in that moment was pretty resolved that I wanted to spend my life doing something that mattered. And so within my purview was to go to long-term care insurance because I was in the insurance division and the consulting division. So I got over to California to lead operations for long-term care insurance, which gave me just a taste of the delivery side of care for people who needed it the most, who lost their activities of daily living and really needed a hand. So that was kind of the backdrop for taking things apart and working in a big corporation and thinking about life on submarines. But it wasn't until my parents were in the hospital that I really understood firsthand just how broken our system is. The fact that they were in the hospital both at the same time and their readmission was a fait accompli. It was almost a guarantee that they were going to come back into the hospital because they had no follow-up appointment when they got discharged. They didn't have enough meds in their hands. And so that was the impetus for, you know what, if I'm going to do something in my life, I want to do it. I want to take a chance, take the leap and try and figure out how to at least fix this colossal problem for one patient, then maybe two patients, then maybe three patients. And so that was the genesis behind the formation of Titanium.
Okay. So with Titanium, could you let's talk about Titanium pre-CalAIM. For folks, I think most of the audience are probably familiar with CalAIM nowadays, but California Advancing and Innovating Medi-Cal, which we'll get to in a few minutes. But tell us, when you mentioned serving patients, who are these patients? What are you doing differently?
Yeah, so the idea, or first the thesis behind Titanium was, what if you hired a doctor and you removed all the reasons why they wouldn't be aligned to the outcomes of the patient, i.e., they weren't paid more to do more, right? They were paid really to help do whatever it takes to keep a patient out of the hospital. And so, the simple idea was just to hire a doc, and their sole focus would be whatever it takes for patients who are discharged from the hospital, who are at a high risk of being readmitted, do what it takes to keep them out of the hospital. And so we got one clinic across from California Hospital in downtown LA.
Yeah.
A simple EMR, which is the system to manage practices, just a one-off thing that's sitting on a box. And we got patients discharged from that hospital who had big problems. And they were multiple chronic condition patients, 6 chronic conditions, plus they were homeless, plus they had substance use disorder. And we started at a global rate that was about 18%. So nearly 1 in 5 were readmitted within 30 days, which I think is a crime, right? Collectively, how can we tolerate that? That nearly 1 in 5 people are back in the hospital within 30 days of being discharged. Well, our docs got it down to less than 3%. I want to say that there was this amazing technology. You know what it was? It was helping them do the thing that they knew how to do without convoluting factors to keep them from doing it. And so we knew that answer had some real merits that we could take into a larger application.
So so how are you financially making this work? Medically, you're making it work.
Yeah.
Was the hospital your partner in this? Was it the health? Was it Medi-Cal? Like, how are you being able to pay your doctor to do the right thing?
Yeah, so we entered a partnership with Healthcare LA IPA.
Okay.
So it was a risk-bearing group, who also had a relationship with the hospital. So the hospital put in resources to help us identify these patients. And then we would rank their readmissions probability, all these patients, so that the IPA was paying us to operate this clinic.
Okay.
And then we just worked with case management to rank these people on the risk of readmission. And then we got to them and said, your hospitalist is recommending you for this post-discharge clinic. We know that if people aren't seen within 72 hours of discharge, they are more likely to readmit. And so we were there for next day appointments, 48 hours later appointments, and we would make sure they have enough meds. But what was really interesting to me is when you think about the plight of, and these were all Medicaid, so Medi-Cal.
Yeah.
The plight of the patient is that they bounce from provider to provider and from emergency room to emergency room. And so we had a patient who came in with a blood pressure of 68 over 47 and discovered that he was taking not one, not two, but three separate different blood pressure medications, all of which were prescribed by different providers. And so our doc gave him salted peanuts trying to get his blood pressure up. But it's the plight of the patients where they don't really have a quarterback for all the things that they need. And so they do what they can. They go to the emergency room, they get admitted, and then they get discharged, and then they go home, and then they get readmitted again.
Yeah.
And I will tell you that, in one instance, and I won't say the name, but I'll tell you this publicly, that one of the federally qualified health centers was so overwhelmed with patient visits that they put in place a policy to limit the number of medical complaints per appointment to one. You can only talk about your hypertension, but not your CAD, COPD, CHF, diabetes, and substance use disorder, right? Now, what they're trying to do is manage the fact that they've got 30 to 40 patients per provider to see, but it exacerbates the very thing that we're trying. These patients are so sick, they need an hour.
Yeah.
They need a private doc whose sole function is to help them not be admitted all the time into the hospital. So there were a lot of discoveries there. But the other discovery was that we kept seeing the same patients over and over again because the primary care wasn't giving them the support that they needed, right? Because of things like that. And that's really the morphing that happened between doctor work and care management work. So our docs were doing a lot of, how does this patient get to the specialist when they have 3 buses that they have to take and they got 3 kids and they're homeless, living in their car or not a car, they're living in a warehouse. So there was a blend of care management and physician work that was at the core of making the difference. And that was really a discovery for us that led ultimately to where we are today.
So that story with California Hospital and the IPA, what year or
that was 96. We started the clinic late 96.
Okay, so you guys have been around for a while. So that was the trial that clearly worked.
Mm-hmm.
So, and California Hospital to me has a special place. That's where my wife was born. I've in my professional career, I'm worked with when they were part of CHW back in the day. For those that are old enough, maybe like you and I, who remember Catholic Healthcare West, Dignity, and now I forget the new parent company. But so you have success there. Tell us about the growth, and then ultimately let's jump into what you guys are doing with the new CalAIM initiative.
Yeah. Okay. So now you've got kind of the backdrop of the company and this blend of care management and physician work. Well, the Health Homes program was something that was going to be kind of brand spanking new in Los Angeles County, and I heard about it. And a friend of mine called me and said, "Hey, have you heard that this is a care management program? And I think you guys would actually really be good." And so I read it, and while we didn't have a specific care management function, we certainly had a lot of care management lessons learned and know-how, because we were doing it kind of as sort of a blend.
Yeah.
And so when the Health Homes program requests for information came out, I really took it to heart and studied it. And and wrote up the applications for the first 5 health plans, which was going to go live in July of 2019. And they said, wow, this reads really well how you would do it. And, we talked about all the patients that we saw with the IPA partners that we had at that point in our clinics. And so we were awarded, as part of the first group of Health Homes program partners, we were awarded the contract. And, we had to then build systems and functions that were able to take care of these patients who had all these social determinants of health problems. But even one of our earliest patients who was repeatedly in the emergency room, an asthmatic who didn't know what to do when they had an asthmatic attack. And so it was really great because we had the clinical sort of know-how to be able to help them, but we also had the people that could go with them to an appointment or make sure that they could get in a car to do it, or that they could fill out the paperwork that's needed to qualify for a benefit. So it was perfect alignment for us. And so we built the care management out of the discoveries that we had managing these patients who were otherwise out of control and miserable.
That's great. So that was 2019.
Yeah.
And I know that ultimately rolled into, the CalAIM initiative. When did was the CalAIM initiative, which took effect in 2022, was that kind of an automatic for Titanium? Did you proactively become part of the CalAIM initiative? I'm not too familiar with how Healthy Homes rolled into CalAIM, so hoping you might be able to share with me and our audience.
Yeah, so they were very similar, right? And there were 2 programs that were, I guess, officially pilots, all of which were pointed towards this social determinants of health. There was whole person care with the county providers, and then there was this Health Homes program. And they were care management with a training curriculum and graduation criteria, qualification criteria, servicing requirements. And so if we performed during the Health Homes program, then we transitioned into being the ECM provider because of it. So all of our patients grandfathered in from the Health Homes program into the ECM program.
Okay, that makes sense. So ECM, for those of you that don't know, enhanced care management, which is no problem, a big component of the CalAIM initiative. So in 2022, your success as a provider in the Health Homes program allowed you to automatically, I guess you can say, become an ECM?
Yeah, as long as we were in good standing and had the processes and all the requirements that were met. And, over time, it's become more stringent. I think there's an expectation that you have to be able to provide proof of doing a lot of things. And we built a ton of technology along the way. When we first did Health Homes program, we didn't really fully appreciate how big it was going to get. And so, we were a small company at that time, like less than, I think, 20 people at the start of the Health Homes program. And then we had a list of patients who qualified, and we really had to build everything from the first care plan and the assessments to, the protocols about graduating. And so we did all of that on a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
That's fun. And then over time, there were more and more people on this spreadsheet, and trying to manage all the nuances of these patients. Of course, we had our clinical system, but to track these specific members, we had these spreadsheets. So we finally had to stop and say, all right, we got to kind of plateau a little bit here and make sure that we take the time to build a comprehensive system, which we did. We did that in 2020 because we saw that this was a perfect marriage between our clinical work and the care management. We needed a system that was really going to integrate all aspects of that care. And so we did that.
That's awesome. So now that we're in 2024 recording this episode, that'll be released in June of 2024. Titanium, enhanced care management, serving so many lives throughout the state, but it's not just care management and clinical care that you guys provide. So let me actually take a step back from my own understanding. You guys are not just an enhanced care management and community supports provider. We'll get into the community supports here in just a second. But are you guys considered like a medical clinic as well? Or like what type of organization is Titanium, I guess? Like how would you define that to a layperson?
Yeah, we're definitely a provider organization, and our roots were in our ability to provide care. Now, if you go back and you kind of consider the story of the patients that, we keep getting back and back, what drove me crazy is that they weren't getting the care that they needed, right? That was why they were coming to us, or, when they were discharged from the hospital, if they could see their primary care, then we didn't get the patients. But if they couldn't feasibly see their primary care in a window adequate for assuring that they wouldn't readmit, they came to us. And so from that experience, we thought we should really be the primary care who can do that level of need. And so we bought some primary care practices with a view of tying it together. And, I harbor this view that it all has to come together. And I love the California ECM and CS programs, but it hasn't yet addressed that higher order or higher level of need for these patients. How do you really facilitate a doc being able to see a patient for an hour who needs it? And so our vision is to fuse it all together so that you can be, that patient who gets whatever they need in terms of clinical time, plus the care management time. And then the third thing that we built, which we feel very passionate about, is the ability to service patients any time of the day. Now, we've all known people that had horrible experiences in healthcare, right? It's a common plight. But if you call your primary care office at 6 p.m., what do you get? Well, nobody's available to talk to you right now, but if this is an emergency, dial 911, right? Oh, okay. Well, I just had an upset stomach. I don't really think that's a 911 worthy thing. Or maybe it is something I really feel sick. So I'm going to go to the emergency room and I'm going to spend 12 hours waiting for a provider. Miserable.
Yeah.
Miserable, right? We've all done it. It's horrible. Yeah. So we created something called Octiva with a partner group of emergency doctors. And Octiva is the ability to service patients 24 hours a day. So that if you call after hours, you can get to somebody who can help you with what you need. Now, there's a lot of telehealth out there, but for us, it was important to be able to provide this as an ultimate idea that through this Octiva plus the primary care plus the care management, that these patients, particularly the ones that are most in need, get what they need to help them live healthy lives and stay out of a hospital.
So that's happening today.
Yeah.
That's great.
Our vision is that we provide healthcare that leaves no one behind. And you really think about it, and that's what it is we've got a system that's so bifurcated, right? If you have money and the right insurance plans, then you can get healthcare, right? Yeah. But for the vast majority of people, they can't. And then you have stuff like happening with the FQs where they're overwhelmed and you can't get an appointment. And you've got 6 chronic conditions and you're living on the 101.
Yeah.
Got to do better than that, America. Come on.
Yeah, no, I love it, man. Love the passion. For folks, I think most of you know when Gray mentions FQs, federally qualified health centers, where a lot of folks who are maybe on Medi-Cal or not insured can access care. And as he mentioned, those places are great, but they're overwhelmed. So, feel free to Google federally qualified health centers to learn a little bit more about them. So Titanium is doing a lot of things, primary care, ECM. You guys also do community support services when it comes to helping folks navigate housing, getting access to housing, correct?
Yeah, and it was born out of one of our ECM patients. And, it kills me, but we got so many of these stories. And this one particular guy, a lead care manager, asked the guy to come into the office, and security blocked his entrance because he was really not in good shape. right? Filthy, disheveled. And the reason I found out about it is because we got a card in the office, because we have a lot of these stories, but it was at the holiday season, and he wrote it himself and said, "Thank you, Titanium. You cared about my life at a time that I didn't." And the story really was that this guy was living in a field, and our LCM started talking to him and discovered that this is a veteran, and worked with him to track down his DD-214s, which are his discharge papers that validate the fact that he was a veteran, and took the time to do it. And then it got him into housing. And then he was able to get a job. And at the time that he wrote us, he said he was pursuing more education for skills, to get a trade. And I think that it's easy to overlook that guy. You would have passed that field, and a lot of people, they might have even crossed the street, right? And yet this is somebody who just needed somebody else to help him kind of get through the barriers and be able to succeed, survive, thrive, be an active part of the community. And so we have these, I call them Fabergé eggs, because a lot of people's situations are so unique. You wouldn't think about it, but it's really important to them. We had a homeless person who would rather live on the street with his cat than be in a shelter without his cat.
Yeah.
Well, we helped him find a shelter to take a cat.
That is awesome.
Right. And so we got into the community supports with a passion, because in the enhanced care management side of the world, we had so many homeless people that were coming through our hands. But in the community support side of it, we actually helped them find, get into, and stay in housing. And so we got over 500 active people right now who are in that category, who we're helping today. And I would just say, because I was on the sub, and I was working at GE, and I told you the credit card story. But the thing that gets me up every morning is that maybe the world is just a tiny bit better, because we've got these hundreds of people who are working on these Fabergé eggs, these unique problems for these patients, and they're succeeding. Yeah. And so every month we publish these stories on our website, a compilation of last month's nuggets from our lead care managers and our housing navigators. And it feels good. It feels good to read them and know that maybe that person's life is just that little bit better.
That is awesome, man. And the story about the veteran, I'd love to hear a ton more stories, but we don't have time. So I'm glad you mentioned the website publishes some of the stories of the work that you guys are doing. What is that website for folks that are listening?
It's tihealthcare.com, like titanium, tihealthcare.com.
Awesome. And before we end the episode, or we're getting towards the end now, Gray, I want to make sure the audience is aware. You guys are not just in LA County. You've grown. You mentioned you went from 20 employees. You mentioned that you have hundreds of folks working throughout the state now. So where are you guys serving today? And you can mention beyond California as well if you have. I believe you might have something you're doing outside California too.
Yeah, so we've expanded. We're actively in 25 counties across the state. We expect to really grow into every area that's viable. There's some places where there's just not a lot of people, pretty remote locations, but they still have needs.
Yeah.
And so we're working with our partners to figure out how we can provide across every county in the state and do it, sustainably. But interestingly, I've got so excited about our experience in the California program that I reached out to Washington, because I knew they were doing a health homes program as well, Washington State.
Yeah.
And so I got pretty quick response from the state, and subsequently the managed care plans, and we set up a program up there. So we have a smaller program that's operating in the state of Washington. But this isn't a couple state problem. It's not a U.S. problem. The ability to help people navigate their own healthcare biosphere is a global problem. And I really see it as we can do this. We can help people in our own land first, okay? right? There's so many Medicaid and Medicare people who need help. Not just those payers, any payer, but I think it's a global thing. And so I can see where we can help people in multiple markets to get the care that they need and get through the system successfully, happily, and live on to have better lives because of it.
Awesome. So 25 counties in California, also doing a little bit of work up in Washington. So I do know, folks, I'm in my day job. My company I work for, we're not an ECM provider or do housing, but we've had scenarios where our patients who receive in-home care services needed a little more support. And we've referred to Titanium. And one of the things I really liked, some of the referrals that we sent to Titanium for Medi-Cal patients, Titanium wasn't in that specific county, but what I really liked is they took that referral and made sure they got connected to the right spot. So I just want to give a shout out to your staff, Gray. I hadn't shared this before. That's what they shared. So I encourage you guys, if you have a Medi-Cal population that needs some support, feel free to check out Titanium as a resource. Last question, Gray, I forgot to ask. The word titanium, I may have asked this 7 years ago, but I can't recall. Tell us the name Titanium. How, why?
Yeah, so the breaking big problems into small problems was the overarching thought, when I was setting up the company. How do you possibly fix something that's a $4 trillion a year kind of spend today? And I kept coming back to this concept of big to small, right? Now, yes, I was a nuclear propulsion person in the Navy, so I was the guy actually operating the nuclear reactor. So there was definitely a periodic table thing or chemical thing in my mind as I was contemplating this. And it was really, I keep going back to atomic, one patient, one provider, one process. And that really was what got me to the periodic table. And then it was really a matter of, does plutonium healthcare really work? No, I don't think that one's as good. All right. Well, what about argon? No. All right. Well, titanium though has a ring to it. I think it's got it's obviously a strong material, but it was why but it goes back to this big to small atomic, fix it in pieces, one step at a time. That's our big hope.
Awesome, Gray. Well, hey, man, this has been great to reconnect with you. Congrats on the success again 7 years ago. I knew you as this guy who's leading this organization I'd never heard of and didn't know much about the population. And clearly you were onto something. So really appreciate you rejoining the show, folks. Again, the website is tihealthcare.com to check out Titanium and consider using them as a resource for your work. Again, Gray, really appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you, Gavin. Really appreciate it. Everyone, be well. Appreciate you listening.
Thanks everyone for tuning in to another episode of Pop Health Podcast. We hope you've enjoyed today's episode, and if you have and want to check out other episodes, visit us at pophealthpodcast.com, iTunes or Apple Music, Spotify, Stitcher, and now YouTube as well. Take care.